Welcome to another conversation in People in Fundraising. This podcast features interviews with nonprofit professionals who discuss their career journeys, lessons learned, and enthusiasm for working in fundraising. And here is your host, the founder of People in Fundraising, Tim Wilson.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another conversation in the People in Fundraising series. And today I am really excited. It's a special episode for this program with Tara McMullen-King. And we worked kind of adjacent to each other for many years at Harvard. And I would love for you, Tara, to tell us why the episode today in special because you're a guest, but in addition to that, what is the other ingredient that makes it so?
Yeah, so hi everyone. Thank you for having me, Tim. It's such a pleasure to be here. Like Tim said, I'm Tara McMullen-King. I am currently Director of Research and Consulting at the Helen Group. We are a full-service prospect research consulting firm that works with nonprofits all around the country. I live and work out of Salem, Massachusetts, in the North Shore of Boston. And behind me, you can see the wonderful, famous witch house here in Salem. I wish I could be actually talking to you from in front of the witch house, but I am actually in my home office. But the picture, I hope, will do it justice. Yeah, and I'm super happy to be here. And I believe this is going to be airing around Halloween. So happy Halloween, everyone, from the Halloween capital of the country here in Salem.
Awesome. Well, that is exactly what I was kind of leading us to. Yes, your interview will air on Monday, October 28th, which is right before Halloween. And there are some questions for you today, Tara, that you got ahead of time that are not about sort of the professional side. It's about your connections to Halloween and the work you do. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that as well. But before we get to that, I'm jumping ahead because I'm just so excited to have you on. Have this like Halloween themed interview. Customarily, every interview starts off with guests telling our audience for about 5 minutes or so how they entered the nonprofit social impact space. So the floor is yours, please.
Absolutely. So, like many folks in our industry, I feel like my path has been a little circuitous. I definitely didn't, grow up thinking, what do I want to be when I, get to be I'm going to be a prospect researcher. It didn't happen. So I went to college. I did my undergraduate at Smith College. It's a women's college out in Northampton, Massachusetts, Western Mass. I studied everything under the sun. Smith is known for being a strong liberal arts college, so I was able to take classes in pretty much anything that I wanted. Problem is I have too many interests, so trying to narrow my focus to something was a challenge. I eventually majored in fine arts because, that's great for getting a job, fine arts. But I had a double minor in psychology and education with the thinking that maybe I would be a high school art teacher. Art has always been a passion of mine. And so I moved out to Boston in 2001 when I graduated. And like many recent college grads, I was like, I need to get a job. I don't really know, what I really truly want to do, but I needed to get a job to, pay rent, which at the time I think it was like $500 a month or something insane like that, right?
Sounds familiar.
With like 4 roommates, how things have changed. My first job when I moved out to Eastern Mass to Boston was with an association management firm out of Malden. And they managed professional associations, and actually 2 of their clients were the Massachusetts chapter of AFP, the Association of Fundraising Professionals, as well as, drumroll please, NEDRA.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So I was an admin for this company. I worked specifically with AFP Mass and NEDRA. So I was processing conference registrations. I was processing membership fees. My big one was I did the layout of NEDRA News back when it was an actual hard copy newsletter.
Yeah.
I believe it was Microsoft Publisher. I was like doing the layout because it was all print. I mean, this is, early 2000s. But through, going to some of these conferences and events and stuff and sitting through, because I would actually sit and listen to the topics, I was like, fundraising, development. This is really interesting. I'd always loved research, the idea of helping people. I was always really into community service and giving back and stuff, growing up.
Yeah,
I was like, how fun would it be to work in fundraising and work for nonprofits? So I
totally.
stayed at that job for about a year, and then I was looking for a job to try to break into the fundraising field and saw that there was a position for a major gifts assistant in the development office at Simmons College, which is now Simmons
Okay.
University
Hmm.
in Boston. So I took that job, and part of that role was supporting the one single development researcher that the college had.
No.
So this was 2002. And then from there, I learned from her, and then I ended up actually going full-time into research during my tenure at Simmons.
Oh,
And then
okay.
the rest is history. So technically started in development around 2002. I've been full-time in research since I'd say 2006. So that's
Oh,
kind
okay.
of, which feels like a lifetime ago, but also yesterday. So yeah,
Sure. Yes.
right.
Yes. And you were the 2022 recipient. You mentioned NEDRA just then, Tara. So in 2022, you were the recipient of NEDRA's Ann Castle Award, which recognizes, lifetime work in prospect development. And so as a recipient, I'd just like to kind of hear what that honor meant to you, because you've been so integrated into NEDRA almost from like day one in Boston, with the association, and then professionally as a prospect development person.
Yeah, I love NEDRA. NEDRA is my heart. I mean, I literally have NEDRA to thank for my whole career, if you think about it, right? It's
Sure.
literally how I got started. I think, having been, so I was on the NEDRA board for 6 years. I'm also currently and have been for the last 4 years, one of the Research Basics Bootcamp faculty.
Mm.
So I teach that a couple times a year. I love NEDRA. Like I said, I owe NEDRA so much of my career. And I think really being recognized with that award was humbling. It was
Mm.
inspiring. It really filled me with immense gratitude. I think it was really kind of a reflection of all the years that I spent, working in development research, and kind of an affirmation that my work made some sort of difference.
Totally.
Um, being able to give back to NEDRA and to a field that, again, I'm so grateful to have found this industry and this
Yeah,
career. Being able to give back has always been something that I feel really strongly about. The idea of sort of, someone else kind of paid it forward for me by giving me sort of educational opportunities early in my career and being able to seek those out. So now to be able to give back and teach, it's like it's a full circle, right? It's a
yeah,
cycle. But I think I actually said this in my Ann Castle speech, when I accepted the award. There's a famous quote from Albert Einstein, and I'm going to read it because I'll mess it up. I
sure.
have no special talent. I am only passionately curious. And
Mm.
I love the fact that like Einstein said that, like literally we use him as like a noun for someone that's a genius, right? Like he
Yes.
clearly had special talents, right? But I've always kind of said I don't necessarily feel myself that I'm particularly smart or all that talented, but curiosity has gotten me so far in life. And I think
Wow,
it's, I don't think you can be a really great researcher if you don't have that curiosity.
totally.
Um,
And that
you
harkens
just,
back, to when you mentioned your undergrad at Smith. Like you were just like an expansive view of what your academic curriculum could be. And I think
yeah,
you can certainly teach skill. And Lee Peterson, who you may know that name from her time at
I do.
HBS. One of the greatest pieces of advice I ever heard in my career was from her. And she said, I can teach skill, I can't teach personality. And
Yes.
so that curiosity piece, that is just innate to who you are. And then you build the skills around that in your career and prospect development. So
I say that all the time, here
Yeah.
at Helen Brown Group too, we have a lot of consultants we work with. And so I participate in hiring and mentoring and training new people. And I always say a great researcher, like you can teach someone how to do research. You can teach the skills, those hard skills. It's the soft skills. It's the curiosity.
Yeah.
It's the passion. It's the, wanting to dig a little deeper and having that sort of passion for you can't teach that. It kind of has to be in you. But that's the mark, I think, of a great accomplished researcher is someone that has that and takes it to that next kind of level, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that quote.
Absolutely. I love it. Such an interesting guy, too.
Yes. Yeah. We're going to pivot a little bit here. You mentioned you're staying in front of the witch house. You've got your Ouija coffee mug, which I love that too.
There you go. Created and invented here in Salem, Massachusetts, by the way. Yes.
Oh, that's
Fun
great.
fact.
Didn't know
Yeah.
that. And as we mentioned, the interview today is airing right before Halloween. So for people that may not be aware, Tara, if you could please share with us why the season of Halloween, the day of Halloween is so meaningful to you. And are there other things you'd like to share about this other professional pursuit you have?
I know, I wear lots of hats, witch hats, right? So, as a kid, I feel like most kids love Halloween, right?
Yes.
I don't think I've ever really met a kid, unless maybe they hate candy or something or hate dressing up. I feel like most kids really love Halloween. And I ended up moving up to Salem, which is affectionately known as the Witch City, in 2015. And for those of you who don't know too much about Salem, we are known for having this month-long celebration of Halloween. We call it Haunted Happenings. It takes place the entire month of October. People come from all around the world each year.
Yeah.
Last year, we had 1.2 million visitors in October. Yeah. Little mayhem, little foolishness, but we are a city of 45,000 residents, and the downtown area where most of the attractions, etc., are is only about a square mile. So you can imagine packing that many people into a tiny space. But it is a thing, social media, I think, and post-pandemic, people are traveling more. It's become a real sort of bucket list kind of destination for people who love all things Halloween and horror and spooky and history, because there's a lot of history, obviously, here too. Many people know Salem, of course, from the infamous witch trials in 1692. And I think that is part of the history of Salem. There's a lot more to the city, which, I could wax poetic about that all day. But so obviously, Halloween, as someone who loves Halloween, has always loved Halloween. But Halloween, as it's celebrated today, has its roots in the Celtic festival of Samhain, which was celebrated by the Celts in lands that are now known as Scotland and Ireland and other parts of the British Isles. It was a time sort of when they felt that the boundaries, sounds spooky, the boundary between the living and the dead, or the veil, was quite thin. And so it was believed at that time that spirits could kind of come through and cross into the mortal world. And the reason that I bring this up, not just to be spooky, but one aspect of Samhain, what they did was they wore costumes or disguises to try to ward off spirits. And they would offer food and drink to appease those wandering souls. And that's kind of the origin of wearing costumes on Halloween and trick-or-treating kind of comes from.
Oh, cool.
So it comes from this. I am someone who is Wiccan, and Samhain is a very sacred holiday for us. We call it the Witch's New Year, but it has meaning in that it marks the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter. It's a time to sort of thank the earth and thank the universe for the abundance you've reaped over the past year and kind of prepare for the winter and the challenges that come with that. So it's a time of reflection. It's basically a celebration of the new year, setting intentions for the year to come, things like that. So there's a lot of meaning behind it. Halloween is super fun, but Samhain is actually a holiday as well. So I live in the capital of, Halloween and witchy stuff. So it's kind of perfect for me. I I have always been really interested in weddings and love and all of those things as well. And so I actually have a side business because, who needs sleep? It's fine. Um, I have a side business called Witchy Woman Weddings that I started. I launched it in 2020.
Oh, okay.
February 14th of 2020,
Oh,
Valentine's Day. We all kind of know what happened in March of 2020, so probably not the best time to start a new endeavor, but through that, I offer customized and personalized wedding ceremonies, hand fastings, vow renewals, things like that,
yeah.
mostly for people that are traveling to Salem and want to get married or have some sort of ceremony here
Yeah.
for various reasons. And I've worked with almost 100 couples over the last couple of years. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So it's fun. I've gotten the chance to meet so many people from all around the world who
Mm,
come, and I get to work with them and get to celebrate their love and their unique love story in a way that I think I find personally meaningful. So
totally.
this is the busy wedding season for me. So starting September, things are going to get a little crazy the next couple of months, but I look forward to it. I've actually done weddings out in front of the witch house before too.
Oh,
Fun fact.
cool.
Yeah, that's fun. So yeah, that's Halloween in a nutshell in Samhain and all that stuff. October is my month, so I'm looking forward to it.
I love
Yeah.
that. And as I didn't want to interject because it was a very meaningful and thoughtful response. So thank you for telling us about Samhain. And I also follow you on Instagram and
Oh,
I you put a lot of thought into the posts that are about the wedding piece of your life, and
yeah.
obviously you're respectful of the parties that get married too. I don't remember there's too many photos of their actual faces, but you mentioned the hand fasting ceremony and other things. And
Yeah.
I mean, as an outsider, I think, the content and how you describe it is really meaningful. I also think how you described Samhain, and it's the end of the harvest and it's a time also of reflection and looking forward too. I just thought, like, the words that came to my mind were like, it's very grounding and connected to the elements, connected to our Mother Earth, which doesn't
Absolutely.
surprise me because I think that is kind of when I think of you, I think those are the elements that I've seen you being connected and grounded with people. We served on the NEDRA board together. Um,
Yes.
so I think it's a great symmetry for you as a person and professionally, and then what that the spirit of the season means to you as well.
I love that. I love that you recognize that. I love that you follow me. That's so sweet. I it's prospect research and what I do with Helen Brown Group and what I've done is that's my career. That's my bread. That I love it. I love it. I love it. But
Yeah.
this other sort of piece of me is another piece of my personality. It also indulges my creative spirit and my
Right.
writing skills in a way that I'm not challenged in that same way when I'm writing a profile versus
Sure.
writing a ceremony for people. But I think the kind of uniting thing is being helpful and making a difference, right? And whether it's with a nonprofit that I'm working with, that's a client, or working with colleagues and training, mentoring, things like that, it's the same thing. I approach it in the same way as when I'm writing a ceremony and I get to know the couple and I offer that kind of concierge level of like, we want to make this special for you. And I think
Yeah.
the number one thing I always say to my couples is, you know, people have a very sometimes narrow view of what a wedding ceremony should look like.
Yeah.
And there's really not, I always say, let's throw out all the rules and let's start from scratch. What
Mm,
do you want to say? What kind of meaning do you want behind it? And
yeah.
I help them create something organically that everyone cries. It's like love fest. It's amazing. And really touches them, and me. I cry. I literally cry at every single ceremony I do,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
sobbing. But I think that a day like that, is supposed to be powerful and meaningful and memorable. And it shouldn't just be the party that people remember. They should remember the ceremony, like your guests, right? And be blown
Totally.
away by that because it tells your story in an authentic way. And I just love
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not pre-packaged or the formula, like this is the script, Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
it's my personal passion project and I love it. I wouldn't say that I love it as much as prospect research, but they're just two very distinct kind of pieces of me.
totally.
I'm a lot of things. I'm kind of a melange of different things, and those are just two. So
Yes.
yeah.
Well, I think that ties in nicely to my next question, which is a quote. One of my favorite bands is U2, and when the lead singer, put out his autobiography 2 years ago, he said that he wrote that autobiography, which was based on 40 songs from the band's catalog. That he wrote the book to attempt an argument that life is the creative act, and the great canvas is all the things that you do with that life. And so for you, Tara, when you got that quote ahead of time, I just wondered, how do your passions and interests make for your own creative life, please?
Yeah. I think that quote really resonated with me. Also because I majored in art. Painting was literally my medium my of choice. So
Okay.
I was like, huh, like everything you do in this life is kind of a brushstroke, right, on that gray canvas of your
Yeah,
life. I think every decision, every action, every experience is going to shape that masterpiece, right, that
totally.
you can look back on. I think I've always kind of seen my life as a learning journey and a narrative that I'm actively shaping.
Mhm.
I think my passions guide me. I think my love for helping people and community service and all those things I think allows me to live my life trying to craft or help craft like memorable experiences or memorable sort of moments for
Yeah.
people and have an impact on people. I said the creativity I'm channeling through sort of my work as an officiant.
Yeah.
And I kind of see, for example, every ceremony that I create is like a brushstroke, right? It
Oh,
reflects
yeah.
my passion for honoring love in all forms and things like that. I don't know. I think my life is a learning journey. I'm not done
Yeah.
living it yet, but I truly do think that every single action and moment, and you have the power to shape your existence and to shape your
Yes.
destiny and shape all of those things. So I
Yeah.
think that the work that I do in prospect research and the fundraising industry, the work I'm doing, with couples and the wedding industry and sort of working within the Salem community as well. I'm
Mhm.
involved with some nonprofits here and some groups as well. I think
Okay.
all of that kind of is my way of leaving maybe a tiny legacy and a tiny
Totally.
impact on the world. And if I can just shape or help make a positive impact on like a handful of people, then kudos to me, job well done. That's really all that
Yeah.
matters to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
absolutely.
Um, and I think there's maybe some tie-in with this other quote. I'm not familiar with the TV series, but I think when I sent you this quote, you were like, "That's great. I love."
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah.
I tend to draw questions from quotes I come across in my reading. Um, so again, I've never seen the series, but it sounds like you may have, or the actor Juliette Lewis
I
from
do.
Yellow Jackets. And so she was interviewed sometime this spring, and I've not asked, I've not shared the quote and then asked for a reflection from a guest beforehand. So you're the first one that's gonna take a take a stab at this. Um, but I thought as I put together your questionnaire, like I think you'd be a great one to answer this. So Juliette Lewis recently said, I think what you learn through time is that you have the ability to regenerate if you put your heart and mind to it. You have to apply discipline and get out of your own way. So for you, Tara, I wondered, how does this sense of regeneration that Juliette Lewis spoke about, as well as being disciplined, speak to you in your experience of 2 decades in the nonprofit
Mm.
world?
That's a great quote. And yes, she's Juliette Lewis. I've loved her for many years. She's in a million. She's a great musician too, great
That's
singer.
right. Yeah.
Yellow Jackets is a creepy show, but fantastic if you like that kind of thing. It's like Lord of the Flies, but with teenage girls.
Oh, right.
Um, yeah, it's great. Um, I think that her quote kind of speaks to the balance between passion and discipline that I think
Mm.
is kind of necessary in fundraising, but also in life. I think it's finding a balance between consistency and innovation.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
that's kind of, I mean, I think over the years for me, the passion has been what has driven the work, but the discipline has made it sustainable, if that makes sense. Like you
I
need a
like that.
balance of both of those things, at least for me. You
Yeah.
know, obviously many of us who have been around, you know, in fundraising for a certain number of years, like fundraising itself is full of challenges, right? We have economic downturns, we have shifting, you know, donor priorities, we have pandemics, we have all of these things, trends, you know, in the industry. There's always going to be challenges, and you always have to find a way to sort of change your approach constantly if the need is there, to be sort of nimble and flexible and be able to pivot, you know, when
Yeah.
needed. And just kind of, you know, regenerate your strategies. What you were doing perhaps 10, 20 years ago, if it was working, it might not work anymore.
Right.
You know, you might
Right.
have to change. So I think being committed to continuous growth and knowing that like setbacks are inevitable, but it offers you an opportunity to sort of take stock of what you're doing and go, maybe we need to change this. Maybe this just
Sure.
isn't working.
Yeah.
But I think by applying discipline, reflecting on things that might not have worked in the past,
Right.
adjusting your approach, all of that, I think turning those challenges into stepping stones and keeping it moving, to try to smash those goals and overcome those doubts. I think these are just important. I know in my life, personally and professionally, I've kind of regenerated a few different times. You know, I think I've stayed in prospect research, obviously, for all these years, but with different jobs comes different challenges,
Yeah.
new sets of rules, new personalities, new all of that kind of stuff. And you have to, I think, have the capacity, like I said, to change, but also to be consistent and to apply
Yeah.
everything when the work dictates that and requires that.
Yeah,
It's a
definitely.
balance. In all things, you need to strike a balance, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
Yeah,
kind of
and
what
you're
I think.
someone that you've worked in, institutional settings, and you've been now in the consulting space for a number of years. So you've seen,
Yeah.
different environments too, and what works in one may not work in the
Oh,
other.
absolutely. I think that is something that I have really been grateful for in my career, but those are also opportunities or new jobs I've created for myself. Like I've taken it on myself to say, you know what, I've kind of most of my career has been in higher ed. Maybe I need to work for a different kind of industry,
Yeah.
or maybe I need to, that was literally part of why I joined Helen Brown Group in the first place, was
Oh,
because I wanted to have the opportunity to work with a variety of different organizations. And we
yeah,
have, as a company and myself, you know, everything, healthcare, education, really niche kind of, you know,
totally.
organizations, small ones, big ones, like huge ones, international ones, like everything under the sun. And again, I think
Mhm.
each of those sometimes is going to require a different approach. It's going to have a different set of challenges,
Yeah.
different personalities, different donor base, or not have any prospects to begin with. You're
Right.
creating it from scratch, right?
Yeah.
You know, you go from a Harvard to like a small nonprofit that doesn't have a built-in constituency, you know, so what do you
Right.
do? So again, you have to be able to sort of pivot, learn lessons, and accept that there's going to be challenges,
Yeah.
but just apply yourself and continue to grow, really.
Awesome. I
Yeah.
love that. That's a great response. And our last quote, so we go from Bono to Juliette Lewis, and now we're going to you.
Oh, geez.
In our last 5 minutes here, I do a little bit of research to prepare these questionnaires. Um, and you mentioned obviously a couple times Helen Brown Group, and they have this great newsletter that I encourage people to sign up if you aren't a subscriber already to the Intelligent Edge. And so a couple of years ago, you wrote in a piece there about self-doubt, and I was on an APRA after party webinar with Jay Frost yesterday, and Tuesday, and a bunch of people that had attended PD talked about imposter syndrome, as a speaker, as an attendee, as a committee member. So those sentiments of self-doubt and imposter syndrome are definitely in the field. So I know that, a lot of people can relate and have felt those sentiments. And so your column, Tara, noted that, quote, "What I have learned is that putting yourself out there, pushing those feelings of self-doubt down a bit and taking some risk can lead to some truly rewarding personal and professional experiences." And that's just a great, fantastic learning experience. So my question for you from your quote there is, how have you found that you have a better counterweight to self-doubt now, given the experience, the time you've had in the field, your accomplishments, the things that tip the scales to be more balanced when you naturally have those feelings, please?
Yeah. It's hard. Like
Yeah.
it really is. And I almost all of the people that I know that have like mentioned things about, like there's so many people that struggle with those feelings.
Totally.
And it doesn't matter, what job or what career. I think that's part of the human condition to me. That's just part of it. Unless you're a sociopath or something, like you are a narcissist. I think most people are going to kind of, question, like, am I good enough? Is that like, am I doing this well? Like, am I living my best life? Like, all of those things.
Yeah.
I think that for me, over time, experience has taught me to just be more gentle and compassionate with myself. I think compassion and empathy are two things that I think we need more of in this world. They're things that I definitely, and that's including compassion for yourself too, right? That's self-reflecting. I think for me, I've used self-doubt as kind of a signal for areas that I can grow, right? So kind of using it as like a reality check rather than a barrier. So like if I start to doubt myself, kind of take a step back and think, okay, is this self-doubt based on actual genuine concerns, or am I just scared? Is it just fear?
Interesting. Yeah.
And I think fear can be a very paralyzing emotion. And I think it can keep us from doing certain things in our life. And for me, I think for me personally, some of the self-doubt I've had in the past was just fear of the unknown, or fear of like what's the phrase? It's like, don't let perfection be the
enemy,
impediment to the enemy of progress or whatever. And that's totally that. I'm a perfectionist. I'm all of those things. I think many of us are. But I think kind of developing resilience over time is going to act a little bit to as a counterweight, and just focus on the purpose and not always strive for perfection, and have realistic expectations for yourself, I think is key. But I think for me, it's like striving to have a balance between confidence and humility. Right?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
And I think you can be humble, and and it takes time, I think. And again, I think with prospect research, things like that, with my career in the fundraising industry, I think for me, some of that has just come naturally with time, right? Because the more you do something and the more experience you have, you do develop a certain level of self-confidence naturally. Do I still doubt myself? Absolutely. All the time.
Sure.
I had to write for The Intelligent Edge. I had a blog post that just went up today, and I hemmed and hawed about it. And I was like, is this good? Are people going to like this? I don't know what to say. And I finally was like, click send it to Helen. Helen's like, this is great. So, self-doubt, if you let it control you and you let that fear control you, is going to stop you, or maybe be an impediment to success in your life.
Yeah.
Being stagnant and staying in one place doesn't serve you at all. So I don't know. It's hard. It's just really hard. I don't know. But give yourself space and grace. Be kind to yourself and understand where you're at. But really just kind of think, is this just coming from fear? But taking risks, with no risk comes no reward, right? You have to be able to do some of those things, and it's uncomfortable. But I also think the more challenges you face and you push through them, you're going to naturally develop more confidence, I think, over time.
I agree.
I still, what is that? It's like that quote from, I think it was Stuart Smalley on like SNL back in the day. It was like, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me,
That's
right?
right.
And like, I I finally feel like I'm at this place in my life where I can say that. And like, it's not, it's just like, wow, like I am good enough and I am
You
smart enough
are.
and people
Yes.
like me. And, it took me, almost 46 years to develop that, but I'm here. So,
Right.
no, I joke, but it truly is. I think a lot of people struggle with self-confidence and self-doubt. Just push through it, take those risks. And, maybe it won't work out, but you're going to learn some lessons and you're going to get back up on that horse and try again. So,
Yeah. I loved that entire snippet. That was
oh,
so
I'm no like
insightful.
Tony Robbins. I'm not going to be writing self-help books or anything like that, but I think, self-examination goes a long way. And I think just, yeah, tamper that fear down and just do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
The worst you can do is temporarily fail and have a setback, and then you just keep going.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting back to Bono just for a quick second. So after the Joshua Tree and after Rattle and Hum, the band really considered breaking up. It was like the end of the 1980s too. And so at a concert in Dublin, right around New Year's Eve, Bono just stopped and he was like kind of thinking aloud. And he's like, maybe this is the end, or maybe we go away and dream it all up again. And that's what they did. And then they came out with Achtung Baby. And,
Which was totally different than their past stuff. That was a pivot.
yeah.
Yes.
And I think it ties into, some of the themes we've talked about today about consistency. Like you know what you're good at and you get out there and apply it, and the self-doubt and regeneration. And maybe you do need to change things up and have fear be a healthy motivator for change.
Great. I think at the end of the day, like I said, give yourself some space and some grace too. That
Yeah.
truly, I think in all things, have compassion for yourself and the kindness and graciousness that most of us extend to other people. Make sure to extend it to yourself and take care of yourself. I think it's very important,
Well
especially in
said.
today's world, which is a very crazy place to be in many
Absolutely.
ways. Yeah, just be kind to yourself also. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well
Yeah.
said. Well, on that note, Tara, this has been such a very grounding and very enjoyable
Oh,
conversation. I love that we talked a little bit more about things outside of day job, and I just appreciate that you went in those different paths with the quotes that you got and the reflection you did to give us these really heartfelt and sincere responses, which I know
well,
people in our
thanks.
audience will learn from and benefit. So thank you so much. It's great to see
You're
you
welcome.
virtually and
Thank you
um,
so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it. I like being able to, I could talk about prospect research for days. I like to be able to talk about other things too, but tying it into the amazing work that we do. But thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
my pleasure. And I wish you a
Yeah.
happy Halloween
I know.
in
It'll
the
be here soon. It'll be here soon.
is there
Absolutely.
a greeting for the in the Wiccan space for was it I'm gonna butcher it, was it Samhain?
Samhain. It looks
Yeah.
like Samhain, like Samha. It's pronounced Samhain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there
Fun
any
fact. Yeah.
like are there any like you know greetings or salutations around that time that you want to end with?
Not specifically around that time, but the
Yeah.
one thing that most Wiccans, when we see each other or greet each other, a lot of times when we leave, we will say "Blessed be," meaning "May you be blessed,"
Oh,
or Merry meet, and Merry part." So basically,
oh,
we're coming together and then leaving. But blessed be to everyone. Enjoy your fall,
absolutely.
enjoy your work, and be good to each other and yourselves. I guess is what I would say.
I love that. That's a great way
Yeah.
to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Tara, for this great conversation. And our audience will find this on YouTube and Spotify on Monday, October 28th. Thank you all for subscribing and liking when these interviews air on various channels. And I just again appreciate your time today, Tara. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Tim.